Alright, how's it going, guys? This video is going to be about the Walker PerfAerator. Their little play on words there. It's basically an aerator attachment that connects to the front of your Walker machine. They don't sell these anymore. I'm not sure why they stopped selling them. They are somewhat finicky, but they are a good high production machine for doing lawn aerations. Not quite as good as a stand-on unit, but far superior to, one of the walk-behind type of units that you'd, like the Bluebird aerators that are out there and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is get this one in shape. Now this isn't like your traditional aerator where you would just roll basically a drum with spikes in it. This actually is powered by the PTO and spins these things around like a camshaft or like a crankshaft right here, and makes these things go in and out, poking down into the ground, and then you drive at whatever speed. So the speed that you drive and the speed of the poking is not one-to-one. It's basically, if you go really fast on your travel speed and you're poking, your holes in the ground are going to be more spread apart. Or you could sit there and crawl and this thing will just poke, and you could basically demolish a lawn really quickly. So you have to be really careful when you use these things. They say what you want to do is, as you start your forward movement, you go ahead and engage them, and you want to adjust your travel speed so you have a good steady speed of travel where you're not going too fast and you're not going too slow. So this is going to take a little getting used to. This is the engagement. Basically that lowers it down to allow the tines to push down into the ground, and then you can see you pull this and then that locks up and that holds it back up in the up position so you can travel. And I think what has happened is just from a little bit of wear and tear and a little bit of slop, you can see how much more that still comes up when I pull this lever. But right here is what holds this up, and there's an adjustment here. I could close this distance, I guess, and allow it to come up a little bit. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I do want to make it so that's the up position. Basically this is pulling back and lifting those tines way off the ground, as you can see, because I don't want to I want to be able to drive forward and backward without these things getting stuck into the ground, and they kind of almost do the way it's set up now. So for now, we're just going to go ahead and replace some of these tines, see how easy that is. Appears to be fairly simple to work on. There's a ton of grease fittings in here. As I'm moving this around, I can see, like, if you look at this little carrier right here that's bolted in, that's a little bit loose. See that wiggling around? So that needs to be tightened up. Just going to kind of go through and give it a general once over and see if I can see anything that's super loose. Each one of these have a grease fitting in them, but there's a ton of play. I think they're just, because they're such a large circle, I think it takes basically forever or probably never that these actually wear out. They just get a little looser, and then in turn they're not going to poke into the ground as far. So we can make up that adjustment though by the length of the tines on the adjustment here. So it seems, I'm no expert here, so we're going to learn together, but I believe we can lower and raise the tines by that. Like I said, we've got some of them that are screwed all the way in, and I'm basically about, that's probably the farthest you want to go, and you want to have at least a good 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of thread inside the carrier, otherwise it'll just bust off. What my plan is to do is replace these 3, and I'm going to try to adjust them all. I'm going to lower this thing down and see if I can adjust them all so they're basically in the same position. I don't know if I'm just going to take a measurement from maybe from the bottom of the shaft to the end of the tine on each one. I'm not sure if that's going to work. Let's see, when that thing spins around. Yeah, see, the tines act like a camshaft. but this shaft does stay centered. So I guess I'm going to want to adjust them from each of these. Basically, this is like a connecting rod in an engine, so I'm going to adjust lengthwise. I'll measure from this bottom point right here to the very tip on each one, so they all match, you know, within reason, because they're all over the place right now, and depending on how they wear, they're going to have different lengths. And that's going to be my starting point, and then we're going to go ahead and take it out and see how it does, and see what else needs to be adjusted at that point. Like, I'm looking here, this appears to be, looks like 2 nuts down here, and if you look over here, there's a nut on the top and a nut on the bottom to kind of hold that. So I think that's connected incorrectly. I think that's supposed to be the nut, then this rubber plate with the nut on top. And it looks like somebody, because that's just allowing this to float all around. Yeah, all the other ones are all like that, with the nut on top and the nut on bottom to sandwich this. And you can see this one is just allowed to float around. So somebody's been in here, obviously, took some things apart. And so let's go ahead and I'm actually going to start with this, because that's an obvious issue. And let's clean this up and see if we can't get these nuts to free up. Now, looks like this whole post is coming out, which is fine. We'll go ahead and take the whole thing out, and then we'll loosen these up on the bench. Probably should have power washed this whole machine before I started working on it. Everything is so greasy under here, but try to clean those threads up a little bit. These threads appear to be messed up a little bit here. Hopefully they're going to be all right. I certainly don't have a die this size to recut new threads. Okay, that is going. Let's see how far up the shaft this thing needs to be. Here's this one for comparison. Okay, so it looks like that nut needs to go all the way to the top of that shaft. Yep, no threads on the top on both of them, all 3 of the other ones. Okay. Like, now I'm just assuming that this 4th one needs to be like the other 3. It just seems to make sense to me. I don't know why they'd have only one that's loose like that, which might be contributing to some of the problems that it's having. The problem's going to be, as you can see, these threads are pretty much non-existent up here. But luckily this is kind of just a stopper. And then the rubber piece will go through here, and then the nut will go back on the bottom where there is threads. So as long as I can get that nut up to the top here, even if it doesn't have good threads, it doesn't really need them as long as it stays up there. I think I can accomplish that. Nice. Okay, it's all the way back up. Put this back in, put that nut on the bottom. I should have one issue solved. So this is the next one. Just going to match it up. Looks like we got 1, 2, 2.5 threads showing. Same thing there, 2.5 threads showing. And the same thing there, about 2.5 threads showing. So might as well match those. Be a good starting point. I'm not sure if this is an adjustment point or not, but it should be about the same right there. Go ahead and lock this up. Notice I got the wrong size wrench too. 1 inch is just a little bigger. Let me grab the next size down. 15/16. Just like the blade nuts. Anybody that has a walker knows. I think it's 24 millimeter or 15/16 for the to take your blades on and off. All right, so now we got the jam nut where we need to be here, sticking out the bottom. Let's see, is there, it looks like a washer. Washer on that one, washer on that one. And it also seems to have a little bit of play. Not sure if that's supposed to have play. All right, let's see if I can find a good size washer we can put on there. All right, found a washer. And we're back in business. Okay. Now, seeing how there is no lock washer, no lock nut, no way to stop this bolt from backing off, I'm going to say that these 2 bolts are supposed to tighten up and wedge together onto this rubber piece. It's not supposed to be loose like that. See how it's got play between that washer right in here? I don't think that's supposed to be loose. I think that's supposed to be tight. Literally, it's hand tight, so there's no way that they would just leave that loose sitting there, because there's nothing to stop that nut from backing off and coming off. So let me go ahead and tighten all those up. And I'm going to grab the manual and see if there's some type of adjustment procedure on these tines, or if I just have to wing it. Trying to let you guys see what's going on here, but it's a little difficult. See how that's loose? There's one problem down. Everything looks nice and tight except for that one bracket right here. Looks like this bolt here is a little loose and bent. You can see right there. Give you a straight angle at it like that. You can see this is bent. This one's nice and tight. That lower, that's loose too. This nut right here, watch right here. So, as you can see, this is just a whole bunch of little pieces of hardware that's all loose. This is loose, hand tight. Looks like a wrench there and a wrench there. All right, let me go ahead and tighten all those up. So these are all things that if you pick one of these up used, you might run into. You know, you want it, like I said, give every machine you ever get used a good look over, because these machines take a beating, and the vibrations and everything involved with all these moving parts, things loosen up over time, and if you don't readjust them and tighten them up, you're going to have breakdowns and problems and issues. So I'm going to start here on the right and work my way over. Boy, that one's really loose right there. Look at that nut. Okay, so it looks like that might be stripped. Not surprised. Pull the nut off and see if maybe I can't put two nuts on it, or a couple of washers. All right, so we got some good threads way out here, but just not on the inside. See how the threads are gone right here? So what I'm going to do is stack up a couple of washers and then put this nut back on that appears to have good threads on it, and see if we can't get that to tighten up. Because this is not just a typical nut and bolt, it's a turnbuckle here. And it's nice and tight other than this, so if it was all loose and clapped out, I would just replace it, but see if we can't get a nice nut on that one. So I buy these little nut and bolt selections from Harbor Freight. Just cheap stuff, but having the right thing at the right time is priceless, you know, so it's always nice to have a little bit of extra hardware kicking around. So I'm going to use these lock washers. I'm going to grab, I think, I'm going to go with 3, see if we can get 3 of them on there to take up that space. See how that goes. One, 2 is probably good. Yeah, let me give 2 a shot. So I don't want this nut to stick out any more than the bolt, because it might hit this. Okay, that tightened up nice. Now we'll move on to here. That one's loose, and that turnbuckle down there is loose. So, with all this stuff loose, guys, there's no sense in making any adjustments on anything, because you can adjust it all you want, but if there's play in anything or a little looseness, there's no sense in making any adjustments, because it's just going to fall back to whatever it wants to. So that's why this is step 1 in the adjustment process. So this one is loose up here and down here, and this is bent. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and straighten this out first. Not gonna lie, that feels like it wants to snap. I think somebody replaced this nut right here with a nylon nut, because none of the other ones are nylons, and I think it's the wrong thread pitch. I think it's coarse thread pitch, nut, and a fine thread pitch bolt. But if we can get one more tightening out of it, probably reuse it. Let's see what we got. Okay, that's straight. Pretty close. Okay, that did tighten up. Looking good there. Down to the bottom one. Good, looking good. All right, looks like we have that same problem here where this one's not going to tighten up. I'm going to have to add some washers. Threads on the inside really up close are worn down almost flat, but the ones out here are good. So by putting the washer in, that makes the nut end up out here a little bit more before it gets tight, and then it can hold on to those really good threads as opposed to the stripped ones. Little trick you learn through years of working on crap. That's the only one that's been tight yet. That one right there. Alright, down to the last one over here. And top one's tight, bottom one's loose. Oh, this one's tightening up. Okay. There we go. Our whole lifting mechanism is tight. No extra slop. And I know that is going to make a big difference. So what I think I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to flip this thing upside down to get to the bottom to be able to work on those tines. I think that's going to be the easiest way to measure them and replace them. So let me get that situated, see if I can get that done. Okay, that flipped over really nice actually. Maybe I should have done that from the beginning to tighten up some of these other ones. And to get to that nut right there for this bracket. So get a good look at it up underneath here. There's not many videos. I don't think there actually is a video on YouTube about this attachment. So this may be kind of boring, but for anybody thinking about picking one of these up in the future or now, before they become obsolete and you want to put a little time into them, there's a lot of good ones still out there, and they're quite an efficient machine. A lot better than spending, you know, $13,000 on a walk behind. If you already got a walker mower, you can pick one of these up, you know, anywhere from $2 to $3 grand in that area. And as long as it doesn't need too much, you can still get a lot of the serviceable parts, and the rest of the stuff could be fabricated, anything else you need. So it's kind of an attachment that'll have a good long life. So now we got a better look at the tines that are sticking out. Again, as that thing spins, these things are like, actually, I think I can spin it now, right? Yes, I can. Gives you a better idea of how this thing operates. This thing spins like your deck, and just like a piston going up and down, these things go up and down. And when you release the down into the down position like that, these things poke right into the ground and create your holes. All right, let's go ahead and start with some of the obvious ones, like the broken off one. Let's see if we can get that off there and replace it, and continue on. Well, that was easy. So that's what's left of the broken off one. You can see here, this is the complete unit, the original one. And these things are not cheap. The cheapest I could find them was about 36 bucks a piece. And you got 12 of them, so you're looking about 500 bucks to put all new tines in this unit. But I do believe they last quite a while. These are basically, you can see they're tapered, but they are some thick, very, very heavy steel. And they appear to be hardened, judging by the color of them. So they are down to a taper at this end here, but they're not that thin like some of the aerators out there. These are actually really thick. You can see the thickness of the steel. So, as you can tell, there isn't much wear on these ones that are on here. They're only 1/4 inch max worn down. So I'm hoping that replacing these ones and adjusting them all straight, I'll get good results without having to replace them all. And we'll see how long they last and how often they need to be replaced. These are probably the original ones, because I don't think this thing has much use on it. Doesn't appear to be a rhyme or reason in how this goes in, so just gonna go ahead and put it like that for now. That's better. This. All right, so hopefully this comes up for you guys. This is the manual online, just walker.com. And they have a whole library of all different manuals for current and discontinued machines. There's only one manual, owners and parts combined for this unit here. So I'm just going to do a quick look through. Looks like it's only 25 pages, so pretty simple. Lubrication, adjustments. So there is a tine end adjustment and a drive chain tension adjustment. And then replacing and repairing tine ends. So let's see what it says about that. Aeration width is 41.5 inches, so that's pretty wide area for an aerator. A lot of those walk behind ones, they do have some 40 inches, I believe 48 even or whatever, but some of them are small, down to like 30, 36 inches, 32 inches, I think. Maybe even a little smaller than that, I'm not sure, but that's a pretty good sized path. All right, so a lot of this manual is really nothing. Operating instructions, starting. That kind of gives you a kind of an idea of how it works. This thing spins around. That's the up position for transport, and that's down for pulling the plugs. They actually have some solid tines as well. These are the ones that have the hole in them, so it actually pulls a plug and pulls it up to the surface, which in my opinion is half the reason you want to aerate, not just the holes themselves. By recirculating that soil back to the top and having it break down, especially if you're overseeding when it rains, that little bit of all that plug ends up breaking down on top of the seed and gives you good soil contact on the seed for growing new lawn. So it's just kind of showing everything here. PTOU joint, maintenance. Okay, so it's saying proper drive chain tension. It says 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch slack at mid-span. So not on the side of the chain with the idler, that's the adjuster. On the opposite side, that's one long run from pulley to pulley. 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. So we'll check that out when we get back out there. So there's a breakdown of the machine. And it also confirms that all 4 of those bars that we just, the 15/16 wrench on, and remember I took that nut off, it was definitely wrong. It's supposed to go just like we just put it. Although it doesn't show that there's even a washer down at the bottom, but I'm sure that's not going to hurt it. Tine adjustment, tine opening. You want the tine opening to face the rear of the unit. Okay. There's something we didn't know. Just do not unscrew the tine ends too far, like I said. It says the maximum aerating depth is 2.5 inches. Okay. So it's a little less than I thought. Whatever it is, it does a decent job. I've used this machine before, and it does pull some decent plugs. So 2.5 sounds a little on the weak side, but sure, it all depends. Okay, so it doesn't seem to tell us anything. Just says tine ends are adjustable by using the following procedure. Loosen the retaining nut. Do not unscrew the tine end too far. The maximum aerating depth. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to make them all even, and we're going to make sure that the hole is facing the rear. And then we can do the drive chain as well. All right, let's get back out. So as I mentioned, what I'm going to do is take the longest length, and we got to turn them towards the back of the machine, which they're not faced. Another issue, obviously whoever had this didn't follow instructions. So, well, I don't want to change any adjustment yet, so let's start with a control measurement. See if we can't get right down, right onto that plate. And we're at 13.5. 13.5. 13.25. 13 5/8. I'm gonna go with 13. Well, what's this new one? 13 3/4. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna shoot for 13 3/4 right now on all of them, and see what that gives me. And I also got to get all of them facing the rear of the machine, so like that. Okay, 13 3/4, and we're facing the back. What I'm going to do is unscrew this and just see how much thread is actually inside here, because I don't want to go too low either and break it off. Well, that looks sufficient. Yeah, I think that's sufficient. Wouldn't want too much less than that though. Alright, so that's where we're going to go. Actually a little bit more. So we're going to spin this in just to get it facing the rear. one down. All right, that side's all adjusted. On to the last ones. Not too bad. They're all been about 13.5. So probably that little bit of 1/4 inch wear, like I said, is the difference between the old and the new ones. So these ones will be pushed in about 1/4 of an inch more than these, just so they're even. Yeah, that one's fun. Take this one out and put it in the bench vise and see if we can't loosen it up. Whew, that lock nut is on there tight. Some cross threading going on there. Got banged up a little, but I think we got it loose now. A little more out, one more turn. Right on. One more turn. All right, to adjust this chain, now it was saying basically right here, we want 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch of slop. Right now, we've got so much slop, it's not even funny. I can't believe the chain hasn't fallen off. But there's a little adjuster wheel right here. And you can see the slot right here that goes up and down. All that does is slide that wheel. We're gonna wanna slide it up, and that will tighten up this chain and get it to the point where we've got that little bit of slack, not this whole huge amount here. I think the people that owned this before bought it, used it, it probably worked great. Probably used it for, you know, 30 or 40 hours or something, you know, maybe a season or two, and then never followed up with adjustments or anything like that on it, because this doesn't look like it's ever been adjusted before. Had it been adjusted before, you'd think you'd see some marks in the paint from where it was. This has never moved. It's way back here. So do your maintenance, guys. It's just good. A little bit of time now is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money later on. You can see that chain tightening up. I can't believe with how loose that chain was, it never came off. All right, we're gonna run our Milwaukee Grease Gun with our quick, what's it called? Lock and lube. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the left, work my way through. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Have a good one.